So if we talk about specifically like the senior or the executive end that you're dealing with, for example, which in many ways, I think people see it as like a dark art of like the real executive hiring. And in many ways, sometimes it's more straightforward. What are the surprise and delight type moments that you can provide when you're trying to get somebody at that level? Like if their expectations are super high anyway, and they know they're very valuable, like what are the things you and your team are doing to try and continue that experience?
Yeah, I'll give you a smaller, funnier one, and then a more impactful one. But throughout when COVID first started, I loved the term purgatory before, in terms of where we were at. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were kind of there again, right? Nobody really knew what was happening, and businesses didn't know what they were going to do. When we hit that, we went into very much we call it a nurture strategy internally. So like, how are we going to build pipeline for people that is very targeted towards specific needs we know we're going to have? And how do we engage them over a period of time? And part of that was making it personal and not making it cookie cutter. There's a very American term about we're not going to have a peanut butter approach to this. It was about making it unique and personal. And I'll give you just a really example that I loved. During the pandemic, somebody had said to one of the recruiters that, hey, I've taken up piano lessons. I'm trying to learn the piano during the pandemic. And the recruiter immediately went and unlocked the LinkedIn Learning piano lesson and sent it through to him and was like, hey, this might be useful to you as you go through that. Like, it's a moment of delight that an executive getting paid multi-million dollars of income, like, it means nothing to them, but it means everything to them because it shows that we listened, we customized something, and we put something back in front of them to delight them. It's different when we get further through the process. Trying to close people at this level is a different strategy altogether. It's not about, hey, get a pre-close, let's take 2 steps forward and go forward with the offer. It takes that village. And that means that, we have a very talent-first philosophy in the way that we think, and everybody leans in. So absolutely standard with someone at the VP level is I would be getting Ryan, our CEO, to give them a call, and it's not a sell call. It's a listen call. It is there to hear what they're looking for, what impact they're going to have, and really try and connect the dots between how that works. But we occasionally go above and beyond, and look, we're owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft stays pretty much out of what we do, but they're there when we need them. And we had a fantastic candidate that we really wanted to bring on board. This person genuinely is going to have so much impact at LinkedIn that it was a real marquee hire for us and a real talent attractor. And Satya stood up. Satya was like, hey, I'll give this person a call. Now, Satya was going through his own stuff, well-documented stuff right now. He took the time out on a Saturday morning to give this person a call and just to listen. Hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to have impact? Like, you want to talk about execs leaning in to help close candidates? At this level, they are our number one recruiters. Nobody is coming to work for me at this business. Nobody wants to hear what I'm going to do, but they want to hear what our leaders are going to do and the people they work for. I have a bit of a joke. Every time I meet a new exec at LinkedIn or Microsoft, I always shake their hand and say, welcome to my team. And they always look at me a little bit confused, and then I explain what I'm trying to say, which is they are at the paramount peak of how we represent ourselves out there. They will be part of the way that we close, and they'll be part of the strategy and how we do that. And they're very willing to lean in, which I think is really, really good.
Yeah, so like if the CEO of one of the largest market cap businesses on the planet is prepared to get involved on a weekend to interview, I think like that shows that every single CEO should be willing and able. Gabrielle, we've talked a bit before about Rick, your CEO. We've known him to be involved in interviews, even if he's like on his Peloton. Like, you can do that when you're a CEO. I wouldn't advise doing it if you're the candidate. But like, how hard is it to say to drop him a line and say, hey, like, we need you to step in here?
Not hard at all.
Not at all.
Not even a little. I mean, it's a Slack, it's a text. We use this walkie-talkie app called Voxer, and our C-suite lives and dies by this app. And so, I mean, truly, it's an ask. Here's the phone number. Here's the email. Can you do this? And it's done.
Has anybody worked here anywhere where that's not been the case? I'm curious because for me, it's like I definitely get pushback from founders and execs, and maybe it's like busier businesses where they don't have the time to step away. But I'm kind of like shocked that that Rick would do it and that Satya would do it? Because these guys are very high level.
I think it's an education thing. I think they understand the value. So I think, the people that have reached this point in their career where they're in these size of organizations at the top of the pyramid, they've been through this a few times and they understand the value of how they are seen and how they're used as a tool. It's interesting hearing before the first set of panelists, because I think all of the passion is there when they're a startup, when they've got an idea and they're a founder, and I don't think they've necessarily lived it a couple of times to understand that their activities on the outside are actually as impactful as getting the product up and launched. So I think that's what it is. I think they've been burned before. I think they've learned from it. I think they've had great talent advisors around them before that have lent in and not just told them, but explained the rationale behind. And I see a lot of recruiters that try and tell and try and say, hey, this is what you need to do for me. And it falls on deaf ears. And then I see great recruiters say, hey, let me explain to you why this is valuable. And the time is never, never hard to get.
On the flip side, though, we don't know who Rick should call unless we've got really great recruiters really unpacking the motivators of a candidate, right? And so I think that actually goes from that first phone call that they have of weaving in, like, how are you going to make your decision? This is a really big deal. Changing jobs is a life change. How are you going to be thinking about that? Like, who are you going to talk to? What's a big deal for you? And compensation isn't the number one for every single human being. Good recruiters are noting those things. They're weaving in those motivation comments. They're really paying attention. They're making sure they're passing along to the hiring manager. The hiring managers then have to consume it. The interview team has to be aware of it. There's no way that we can just randomly go into our applicant tracking system and see like, oh, Rick, you need to call these 2 people. It's because our recruiters are savvy enough to know like, hey, this is really going to matter and this is going to close the deal.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be a VP, SVP hire, right? It could be somebody that's like, on paper, that maybe don't need that level of influence, but it's worth the while all the way through anyway.